Travel Hour fam, what's good, y'all? We back again with another episode, and it is Black History Month. So super excited to have our guest here today. We got the homie Cam in the building. Cam is extraordinary. Like she'd have been everywhere, y'all. Like my daughter been in Africa. You know, she out here spitting knowledge and giving folks history about different religions. And so, Cam, we just super excited to have you on the Travel Hour. How you doing today, Cam?
I'm doing good. A little tired, but I'm good. We hyped off some Celsius today. This is not an ad, but this has been giving me life lately, okay?
Yeah, but Celsius, if y'all want to do a deal, look, Cam put it out there in the universe. So hit us up, y'all.
Hit us up, hit me up.
No doubt, no doubt, Cam. Well, super glad to have you on. I know that you well, first of all, we got a chance to meet back in Brazil at Black Travel Summit. And you know, we quickly formed like a little crew and all of us would just kick it. And, you know, I really got to see some of the content that you were doing. And I just got to say, like, I want to give you your flowers because I just appreciate your content so much because I have learned a lot by just watching your stories and some of the stuff that you're putting out there, even with like some of the Brazil content, even with your content around religion. Like, it's been so dope to watch. So I definitely want to give you your flowers on that.
Thank you. It's been fun. It's been really fun putting content out there because I'm learning as I'm going. So like, I'm not an expert or anything on, traditional African religions and diasporic religions and all of that, but it's something that has been of interest to me. And so I've been kind of, I guess, decolonizing my own mind about a lot of what we've been taught, about different African traditional religions. So as I'm putting the content out there, this is like kind of like my personal journey. I'm also learning. I'm learning with the people, with the viewers. So it's been really fun doing that. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I think one of the biggest things I remember growing up, and I always remember like my grandma made sure like we was going to church, and I'm talking about like not just going on Sunday, like 4 days a week. Like it was Tuesday night Bible study, Wednesday night is a prayer service. You got us in church on Friday, Saturday we
Yeah.
got choir rehearsal, Boy Scouts, you name it. Sunday it might be
Praise
two
dance
services.
rehearsal on Thursdays, okay? We had early morning Saturday prayer. Don't forget evangelism right after Saturday prayer. So I was at church or with the church folks all Saturday, okay? Then I got to see y'all on Sunday too. And not just one service. We had two services. We had three actually. So yeah, church every day of the week.
See, and that's where we connect that because, you know, growing up Kojic is a little different. Like people will say, oh, I grew up in the church. Like growing up Kojic is very, very different because they go to church. They know, you know, you ain't going for 30 minutes and they getting out, coming with another service behind you, like with the New Age church. It's like you gonna have check. And
Yeah.
I think that's always been interesting growing up. So what was it like? Tell the folks like what was like growing up Kojic and also like where you from?
From San Francisco, born and raised. However, I did leave the city around like 12, 13. My family had moved out further East Bay. You know, they was kicking all the black people out. But yeah, so from the city, from San Francisco, California. I went to church in Oakland, Acts for Gospel Church of God in Christ, by Pastor Bob Jackson. He's the pastor, the leader. And so I grew up under that with my grandparents. Grandpa was the elder in the church. My grandma, very much so intercessor, prayer warrior. Grew up, her walking around the house, speaking in tongues, anointing animals, stuffed animals, anointing the doors, like all the things, okay? Of course, anointing us as we sleep, but that's the kind of, like, that's what I grew up around. Because when we did move out to the East Bay, further out to the East Bay, we had to find a different church instead of like constantly making that commute. So I guess I would say the churches that I attended growing up was more, I guess, non-denominational is what they would go under, but it was very much so still church. It was very much so still church. So yeah, so growing up around speaking in tongues, growing up around, people falling out under the Holy Spirit. And I too was that person who was falling out under the Holy Spirit. It's not something that I just, saw, but something that I fully participated in. So we joke about being at church multiple times a week, but as I got older, that's actually something that I enjoy doing. I found my community at church. I found my people. I was always, considered the church girl, not just at church, but at school, high school, middle school, because it was something I really was. Now, I'm not going to say passionate about church, but passionate about God, passionate about Jesus. Like I actually wanted to, build my own relationship with God and stuff like that. So I enjoyed it, to be honest. I enjoyed being on the step team. I enjoyed, serving God in that way. I enjoyed praying for people, laying hands on people. Like I enjoyed it. I really did. It was fun. It was life-changing for real. So yeah, that's kind of like, I guess my little background as far as like church and kind of the church culture I guess I grew up under. Yeah, did I hit everything? I was a leader of a youth group, okay? Like I had my first sermon at like 13 for what was it, Youth Sunday or something. I was up there. Yeah, man, I did a lot. I did a lot from like 12 and 12 and up, 12 and up. Yeah, when I was old enough to attend. Actually, I snuck into youth group. I think I was a year too young, so I kind of got in a little bit. But it was a a life changing experience being there. And I also too, like, I spoke in tongues, still speak in tongues. You know, if you catch me in church, I love a good worship session. So if you see me there, my hands are lifted now. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't just something that I was around and something that I was in, but it was something I participated in. I have my own personal relationship with God. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I think I was the complete opposite growing up. My grandmother was sick and tired of me because I was a rebellious child, and
Hmm.
I hated going to church. And I made sure I let her know, like, man, I remember one time we was riding the car. I'm like, yo, like, if I gotta do all this to get into heaven, like, man, fuck this shit, man.
Right. No, I feel you. I feel you. I feel you. My grandma wouldn't let me, because I ended up moving with my grandparents like the first 2 or 3 years. My mom had still stayed in the city. So I moved with my grandparents because it was better education and stuff. And there was some things like my grandma would not let me do. And I was lightweight, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not resistant, but I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But I was just pissed off because like I wanted to go to the parties too. And she would always
Mhm.
say, like, you have an anointing on your life that I have to, I have to cover, or I have to whatever. And it's like, nigga, I just want to go. Like, I'm not trying to smoke. I ain't trying to, I just want to be amongst the people. I might shake a little something, but yeah, I feel you. Doing all that to get to heaven.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where you gotta warn your friends like, hey, like, can I come to church? You, I'm like, bruh, we gonna be in there for a minute. So if you come to church, you might want to pack like a little overnight bag. You might not know what we about to end up doing, but
Some snacks too.
snacks, maybe a change of clothes because you might ride to church. Then they got a second service, so you go over your auntie house, let them cook, and then you going back to church for service. So and then don't let it be watch night service.
Yeah.
You in there from Friday to Sunday. You spending the night. You know, like we got sleeping bags on pews. So it's just and I saw you did the video about watch night service and how you connected that. Can you just tell us like, first of all, like what inspires you to like I'm gonna do a video on watch night service and just tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days before December 31st last year. What are we in 2026? So 2025. I woke up like 2 or 3 days before the 31st and I was like, had this random thought, just where did Watch Night even come? Like, did we create that just out of like, we just about to do this because we ain't going to the club? Like, I was just curious of the history behind it, like the origin behind it. And so, me and Google had to find out some things. And yeah, that's really how I just Googled it, was how I was finding out, that it actually started. What was it? Back in before the proclamation was official, which was, I forgot the year. God dang it, I forgot the year, y'all. But I just Googled it and found it hella interesting. The fact that like, okay, so we was what they called back then, not church. Why is everything slipping my mind? Praise houses. What did they call them? I can't think of the name right now, but it was a different term. But they was there, and we'll just say church because I can't think of the term. But they were in these homes in these churches, and they were waiting for their freedom, and they called it Freedom's Eve. Instead of like, this is New Year's Eve, this is Freedom's Eve because we waiting to see if this shit about to really come to pass for real. Like he signed it a couple months ahead of time in September, I think it was, but it wasn't gonna come to pass till it wasn't gonna be official until January 1st. So that was just really interesting to me that this was something that we've been doing. Of course, it has evolved and it's changed, but like we've been waiting up all night, praying and waiting for our freedom or whatever. So that was just an interesting fact to me, and I just Googled it. And I also started to see some. There were some people who had already did some content on this, when I was looking up on TikTok, and some people had already put some stuff out there. But yeah, I love looking up stuff like that and learning about Black history, especially when it intersects with spirituality. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's interesting. I've always been a why person, and I've always wanted to know, like, I was a kid in church who will always push back and ask questions. Why do we do this? What's the tradition behind it? What's the story behind it? And I think, like, when you look at watch night service, as a kid, it was one of those things where it's like, man, here we go. It's New Year's Eve, and we got to be in church all night. And then they about to cut up at 12:01 because we done made it to the new year and everybody's happy. And then you might eat some food with your people and go home. The thing I remember was like, hey, like I remember Y2K, and I'm in there with my eyes closed. Year 2000, well, it's 99. I'll be going into 2000, and I'm like, Lord, if I open up my eyes, like, am I still gonna be here? But
I
so
wasn't in that. I heard about it. I heard about it, but I wasn't in that that conspiracy theory there. But I remember hearing it on the radio, like, I don't know if we gonna make it, y'all, Y2K.
But we made
But
it.
yeah.
We here.
And it's hush harbors. That's what they called it. One of the terms was a hush harbor. And so a hush harbor was like church houses or whatever. But that was a place where enslaved Africans would go in the woods to, basically. I actually want to do some content on this because I found it interesting as well. But they would run away in the woods, in the cuts, to basically have church, to pray, to dance, which is called, they did what's called like a ring shout is what they called it, which I'm going to talk about that in some content as well because I found that hella interesting. But yeah, it was called hush harbors. So they was waiting and praying and tarrying, as the old folks say, for their freedom in hush harbors. Hush harbors, and then they call it something else too, but hush harbors is the word.
Got you. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Growing up as a Christian, I know for me personally, there were times where, as far as other religions, I was taught to believe that Christianity was pretty much like the way, the truth, and the light. And, I would ask questions about, well, hey, what about people that, are Catholic? Or what about people who are Islamic, right?
They all go on the hell. All of them.
So what did that look like as far as for you? When did you have this revelation? Because you did a video or a reel on Haiti talking about voodoo. And voodoo is one of those things that the term has been demonized, right? To think everything negative. So when did you have this awakening as to like, hey, I have this curiosity about other religions around the diaspora?
Mm-hmm.
And what did that look like as far as like creating that content? What did it mean to you?
When did the curiosity come for me? I would say, well, I was still scared as hell. I'm still kind of a scary cat, okay? When I see some images and stuff, I'm like, ooh, that's the devil. But I would say the curiosity really started for me when I was on the African continent. I think it was brewing before then, when I moved to DC to go to Howard, and meeting different people and like some of the sweetest, most beautiful people who just weren't Christians. They didn't label themselves as Christians. And so it started to brew then when I left California and I was around other people who believed different things. But the shit really hit home where was I at? I was living in Ghana and we did a road trip to Benin. Benin is like the capital of voodoo. It's the origin of voodoo. And so I was there and I went to a fetish market. And this is a place where people come and get, I guess, like what they need to do whatever ritual or whatever prayers or whatever. And so I'm there with a group of, I don't know, other African Americans, specifically from the East Coast, and I was the videographer. And so I'm recording and, getting everything. And this man says, our tour guide says something along the lines of like, we'll mix this owl's head with, I forgot what else he said, but we'll just say an owl's head and let's say a raccoon's ass. I don't know, but we'll mix this in order to get rid of the bad spirit or the evil spirit. And that just kind of took me, I was caught off guard with that because I was taught they are the evil spirit. So like, what do you mean y'all trying to get rid of the bad spirit? Because y'all the bad spirit. Y'all praying against yourselves? Like what? Like what's going on? And so that's when the curiosity really, really sparked for me. And I felt like my kind of whole like spiritual foundation kind of crumbled in a way. Because I started to ask questions. Like you said, you grew up asking questions. I didn't grow up asking questions. I took what it was, what I was told about Jesus, what I was told about Christianity. I took it, I embraced it, I didn't ask any questions. Plus also I was having very real spiritual experiences outside of church. That solidified a lot for me. I was having in my room by myself or, out on the street, just outside of the church house. And so I never questioned. But being in a different space and being around different people, and being exposed to different ways of thinking, I felt like everything had just crumbled for me at that point. Traveled back to Ghana after that, and that's when I started questioning. And I got scared because I've never questioned. So I'm talking to my homies who's kind of already been on this journey. And so it started while I was on the African continent. It scared the hell out of me. But I started questioning for real and started to learn a lot.
So what happened after you took that owl's head and that raccoon ass and put it together? I mean, we need to know.
I tried it, okay? I ain't tried nothing. It was just interesting to hear that. It was just hella interesting to hear that because, like I said, I was taught that y'all were the evil spirits. So the fact that y'all are praying to get rid of, or y'all, do whatever to get rid of an evil spirit or evil eye or witchcraft or whatever it is, like y'all are praying against this. Like, so I think one of the things the main thing that I took away or started to learn was that there is good and bad in every religion, in every spiritual practice, including Christianity. So yeah. I forgot your other question, but that's when the curiosity spark for me was on the African continent, specifically in the country of Benin and Ghana. Also, with living in Ghana, going to the slave castles, Elmina and Cape Coast, and learning that there were churches, there were places of prayer that was literally above where they kept our ancestors. Like, you have people who are in shackles, who are enslaved, and y'all are praying with scriptures and like above us. Like, that is wild, diabolical. That's crazy to me. And that's also what started my questioning as well, because it was also in Togo, because we went to Togo before going to Benin. There was another place where they would sell us, put all the enslaved Africans in whatever the hell, and there was a Catholic church right in the middle of it. And it's like, was this at every door of no return? Was this like we just shackled up and y'all up here in y'all freedom praising and stuff? And then too, like, I think what also started even before going to the African continent, the first murder that really rocked me was Trayvon Martin and Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland took me out. But that's when I really started to question as well. Because, like, how we both, white folks is praying to Jesus, and then we praying to Jesus. Who Jesus gonna listen to? Who he listening to? Because y'all killing us. Like, we're praying against what the hell is happening. Y'all praying. Like, I didn't get it. And so that's really when it started, when I started questioning, when these murders were, all across media. People were filming things, and I'm seeing stuff. And then, like, I grew up in Cali. So I guess like a racist experience I didn't experience a lot of racism growing up. And if I did, it was very, like, subtle, and I was just ignorant and didn't know. But seeing that these things were happening really, really got me questioning for real. And then we weren't even talking about it in the church. And that was like, what the hell? Yeah, so that's what really started to question it, was the killings, the murderings of police, the black bodies. And that was before getting to the African continent. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's some heavy stuff to digest, because one, it's years of trauma packed on top of each other, right? You got the transatlantic slave trade, which moved our ancestors and our people over to this country and to other parts of the world. And then on top of that, they were sprinkling Jesus on top of that. So every time I travel somewhere, it's funny, because when you see a country that was colonized, the first thing you're gonna see is a church. They gonna come here and take everything. They gonna, rape and pillage. They gonna, enslave folks. But one thing they gonna do is sprinkle a little bit of Jesus on top of it. And so I always laugh when I'm in certain countries and I see it, because the first thing that comes to my mind is like, how many of us took to actually build this church? Because we know y'all weren't gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing that, and then you look at I remember one time I was flying to Cuba, and I'm on the plane, and this lady sitting next to me has like some rosary.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like praying as the plane is getting ready to take off or whatever. So I ain't think nothing of it. And one of the other ladies says something to her, like, can she stop? And as the flight ends up taking off, the lady that was telling her to stop, I'm sitting there wondering, like, why would she say that to her? And so when we got up in the air, the lady started talking to me that she said, hey, like, because of the religion that I'm using, they look at it as shunned because it has African roots. And she said when, the colonizers came to Cuba, there were a lot of enslaved Africans that were brought to Cuba. Cuba's actually really black.
Mm-hmm.
And when you step onto the island, like they look like me and you. And I'm talking about people was running up to me speaking in Spanish and stuff, and I'm like, yo, like, no entiendo. But because of that, when folks came over, we didn't just bring ourselves, like we brought the braids and the hairstyles, we brought the religion, right? And we infused these different religions, right? And a similar story with Haiti. I feel like Haiti has been given this bad rap around the world for literally just freeing themselves, right? And so, people will sit up here and tell you, like, yeah, don't go over there, they practice voodoo. Well, what is voodoo, and is it bad? Have you had any conversations with folks about, you exploring different religions and learning about them? Not even exploring, but just learning about different religions. What does the conversation look like to people that may not understand?
There's a lot of pushback, specifically when I'm talking to maybe those who come from a Christian background about, like, what I'm learning. I wouldn't dare talk to my grandma about a lot of this stuff, to be honest, because she probably think anyways. But I think there's a lot of defensiveness, and honestly, really, I think the bottom line is fear. And we fear what we don't understand, which is like, that's cool, because I had a lot of fear. Sometimes I still do, but it's keeping me out of being curious about something instead. And so when I'm having these conversations with people, specifically those who come from a Christian background, I think it's just a lot of fear, even when it's not people from Christian background, because this is something that we've been conditioned to believe, that voodoo is it's the devil, it's demonic, it's witchcraft. And I think my as I've been learning about and unlearning about voodoo, which I haven't really fully dived into it. I've been more kind of tapped into hoodoo, which is black. It was created in the American South. It's a spiritual practice, a religion that was created in the American South, and it has its like similarities with voodoo or whatever, but it's different. So, anyways, as I'm learning and unlearning about voodoo, though specifically, like I said earlier, like I'm realizing that there's good and bad in everything. Like my thing is not to like when I'm having these conversations, it's not to dispute that somebody didn't use a voodoo doll and did some whatever on you or on your family, because people have had these very real experiences. But my thing is to give light to the other side, right? To show the other coin, which is that it's done a lot of good. For example, the Haitian Revolution, which is what I did my reel on, diving into that a little bit, that like how it played a role in our people getting free, and I don't see no harm in that. Like I would have been at the ceremony too, because we about to get free, we about to overthrow these motherfuckers. Like, and we ain't using the name of Jesus. That's cool. Like, as long as we free. But I want to just show in my conversations, I like to show the other side of like, and for some reason, I don't know why it's hard for people to grasp that there's anything good about voodoo, or that there's anything good about Santeria or Candomblé, or, any other African traditional religions. I don't know why it's so hard to grasp. Well, I do know why it's hard to grasp that there's any good with it. Yeah, I think it's just a lot of fear. It's just a lot of fear because we don't understand it, and we can't grasp that there's any good with this because we've been so conditioned, whether it's been through media. Like I was watching Hey Arnold the other day. I love 90s sitcoms. I love 90s cartoons. Like it calms my nervous system. I will watch that, especially after a long day. So I was watching Hey Arnold, and I was like, wait, Helga had a whole shrine of Arnold in her closet. She had a voodoo doll. She like there was like all this stuff that I was like, wait a minute. Or even like, I don't know, watching what other cartoons or movies are there? I can't think of any right now. Oh, Princess and the Frog, like all these, or Eve's Bayou that I currently recently watched again. But like all these, how media is just showing this one side of like it's evil. It's not like it's don't play with it. Don't, which I'm not saying don't, but this is just the conditioning that we've received, right? Through media, through slavery, through, I mean, all of it. And so I think it's just hard for us to grasp that, that there's actually good. One thing I'll say about hoodoo really quickly that I learned was like, that was a whole healthcare system for us, in the South or throughout the United States, because hoodoo just wasn't in the South, but it was like, Texas and Detroit and, all these things. But that it played a way for us to combat the violence of racism, if you will. That's really what hoodoo, why it was even created. And so like learning all these things that was like, this is the devil, don't touch it, this is witchcraft. But like actually it was kind of like the backbone for us. It's how we survived, it's how we kept going. I think we're very spiritual people anyway, and that, it played a huge role in keeping us, I think, sane. And also I think, because I'm not an expert, just what I've been learning so far, I think that, it was a way for us to, like I said, stay sane and just protect ourselves, to hold on to something that was told that that's not of God, but like it kept us connected. I don't know, it kept us like connected to like home, what we knew, right? Even though we was infusing it with Catholicism and Christianity and different like Native American practices, but like this was something that we can call ours still.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to see just how powerful our people have been and how resilient they've been. Because you always find like these little nuggets of, the ancestors holding on to the culture in any way they could. I always think about, like even
Mm-hmm.
going to Palenque of the Colombia, it was interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see just the story of like, talking about people being free, but hey, like, we're gonna braid your hair so you can, and this is the roadmap to get to freedom, right? Through the braid trail.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the braids, we're gonna put a little seed in there so y'all can grow some okra when y'all get up there. Or grow some rice. It's just interesting to see these things because, when you talk about like, I guess if you want to call them like these maroon societies or,
Mm-hmm.
black folks who decide to free themselves, it's not really taught to us in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Like our history starts with the slavery, and then we go from there, and they don't tell us anything else about our people, and so everything else, you got to go retain. And so I think it's interesting. I love the fact that you are like unfolding these stories that are lesser known because our history does not start with slavery.
Right.
What would you say as far as, because I know you've had, I feel like you've lived like some different lives, Cam. Like you've had, look, you from California and you went to Howard, which is completely across the country. And shout out to Howard. They call it the Mecca. One of the yeah, the powerhouse HBCU has produced nothing but talent. Howard is an amazing place. How did you get from Cali to Howard, and what was that experience like showing up on campus to an HBCU?
Well, so initially, I actually wanted to go to USC because of the media. I knew I was going to be in media. I wasn't sure in what way, but I knew I was going to be media. So I'm like, I'm gonna stay home, stay in, in Cali, LA, entertainment industry. And so I wanted to do USC. I wanted to go to USC. I went there multiple times to visit, to talk to counselors. Like that was what my heart was set on, USC. But as I mentioned before about like the different killings and stuff that was happening, and my life was changing in a way where like I was more curious and more interested in learning my history, like Black history in America during that time. It really just sparked. And so USC, my heart kind of shifted a little bit away from USC as all this stuff was going on in the world. And I started to kind of be not even just a shift, but it was more of like a split down the middle of like, okay, I still want to do USC because of A, B, and C, but also like I want to be around my folks. I want to learn. I want to learn more about who I am as a Black woman in America. Learn more about my ancestors, the lineage that I come from. What had happened was, even though my GPA and all that was great, okay, I didn't get accepted, and I kind of knew I wasn't gonna get accepted though. It kind of broke my heart still, but I kind of had a feeling like, nah, I'm not supposed to go here. Like, this is not what I'm supposed to do. And also, I was kind of like, I wanted to travel up and down the East Coast. I had never been to the East Coast before. So, not getting into USC, I took some time off again and traveled up and down the East Coast. DC was like home base. This was back in 2015. And that's when I really started to catch the travel bug. So, 2015, DC was home base. My homie let me live with her for a couple months. And I was just, I went to New York, stayed there for 2 months, came back to DC, went to Philly, stayed there, and then went back home, my home base in DC. Of course, my friend also went to Howard. Shout out to Jasmine Edwards. We've been knowing each other for, I don't even know, since like preschool. And so I got to be on campus with her and kind of like, learn more about Howard. And just, DC is Black as fuck. So like, I was learning about everything Black, go-go, and all the things. And I just was so attracted to it. And, a year later, I ended up making the move. I got into Howard. I applied that year of 2015 in the fall for the spring of 2016. I ended up getting in, got my acceptance letter January 2016. Moved down there August of 2016. And being on campus, it was just, being in DC, period. Because at this time, I'm 26 years old, right? I'm not the same age as everybody, as my peers who's in my
Yeah.
class. I'm a little older. I've had a little bit more experience. So my experience on Howard campus and just in DC period was different from my peers because of, I think, my age. And I never lived on campus. I decided to stay off campus. I was like in an all-white space for a couple years. It was an all-white Christian space that I was in right after high school. I went to a supernatural ministry school. We won't say which one it is. Yeah, but there's some things going on. But I was there for 3 years, and so moving back out of that, coming from that space, and then all the killings and stuff that we said, and then going to Howard it was life giving. It was I ended up I learned so much, and I felt like I began to feel more confident in who I was as a Black person. So like accepting the fact that I'm dark skinned. I cut off my perm. I started wearing my hair, embracing more of my natural hair, just embracing who I am, just what makes me me. And all that really really solidified when I was at Howard and in DC, because DC everybody had locks, everybody Black, like in unashamed Black. Like in Cali it's a little different, specifically Northern California it's a little different. So it was life changing in a way that I was just learning so much about myself. I was able to embrace more of who I am. Yeah, I think that answered the question. I answered the question.
Of course, of course. Yeah, I think I love to hear it because there's just nothing quite like stepping on the campus of an HBCU because
It
it's
is.
really just it's a sanctuary, you know?
It is.
You got the aunties working in the caf that's gonna take care of you. You got people in the administration or professors that are looking for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I miss class, they was pulling up at the coach's office like, hey coach, yeah, like Jock won that practice today.
Okay.
Like, damn. All
Yeah.
right. Shout out to Mr. Marriott. He was
Mm-hmm.
a professor that did not play about us, and I appreciate him because, as a Black person, like, you need somebody in this life that's gonna look out for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, we don't get, a lot of times we have to grow up so quick being black in America. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like HBCU was a place where you can go and you can kind of let your hair down. You can make mistakes and you may not have to face
Yeah.
the same consequences as, in the real world per se, right?
Yeah.
Did you have those same like feelings where you at Howard and experiences like that?
Yeah. I was able to just fully be myself, fully be black ass Camila. I definitely, the connections that I made while there, the relationships that I built while there, it helped me to get to where I am now. Like my teachers definitely looked out for me. I didn't do a lot of internships in DC like I wanted to because, I had to work and put myself through school. But nonetheless, being connected to, certain professors who will put me on to, hey, this is Pan and I think it'll be a good opportunity for you. Or, they knew I love traveling. So like, hey, like, look at this. Like, so I felt definitely like this is my auntie, this is my professor, but it's really like this is auntie so and so. Like that's how I looked at it in my head. Or this is uncle so and so. And our professors were like legends for real. Like, you hear about people like Dr. Carr, who I had the pleasure of having on my morning news show the other day. And even that, like, that's dope. I hit up my old professor and be like, hey, I'm doing this segment about, the legacy and life of Jesse Jackson, who just passed away. Can you get on and talk about his political legacy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, having those connections still it's dope. So, like, yeah, like, it was, DC became home real quick. Howard became home. Every time I step onto Howard's campus, it's like I'm being wrapped in a big blanket. It's kind of like it was like my safe space outside of, it's like when you walk on campus, this is home, and like kind of like when you go off campus, I'm still that it's not home off campus, but it's just a different world. It's just, you leave the yard and you go out there and it's a different world. And so every time I step on campus, even to this day, this is home for me. This, like, Howard always has had my back. I mean, of course you have, the little things that happen inside, but what family doesn't? But yeah, Howard has changed my life for real, and it will always be a place that feels like home. So shout out to Howard and the professors, and administration wasn't always the best sometimes, but like I said, like, what family is perfect? But they, yeah, Howard was and is still that girl. So yeah.
You better pop your shit. But I think that's dope because, at HBCU folks, we got a serious amount of pride. When I go home, I'm talking shit. Yeah, I don't give a damn because I know you went to Ohio State, Shaw you in the building. First HBCU in the South. I don't give a damn about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's just like my cousins see me like, oh, this nigga a Hotep now. He done came home from HBCU and he know all black. I'm like, bro, chill. Like, that's not even what a Hotep is. But anyways, bro,
Right.
what was that? What was that like going home as an HBCU grad, by the way, as well? But even while you were in school, like, what was that like going back home to California and visiting and talking to your friends, your family, and just having that HBCU experience under your belt?
I mean, like I said, I was older. I was 26. Me and my homies, we 26, 27. It wasn't, I didn't come back as like, or when I came back, it wasn't like, oh, she's a Hotep or whatever. You say Hotep? I think you said Hotep.
Yeah.
She came back extra black. That wasn't necessarily the experience that I had necessarily coming back home. A lot of people were proud of me for even choosing to go to Howard. A lot of people, at first, for one, I didn't know it was tough to get into Howard because it wasn't a big deal to me that I even got in until I actually got to Howard. So getting there, I'm like, this is Howard. Like, I on the East Coast or on the West Coast, HBCUs, just even to talk about HBCU life, we weren't it's not a culture here, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as it is in the South or on the East Coast. On the West Coast, I didn't know what the Divine Nine was. I didn't know necessarily what, I didn't know a lot of things. Like, I would see on Living Single people wearing, Howard sweatshirts, or on, Bill Cosby show, or, all these black shows, people rocking different HBCUs. But coming back home for me, it wasn't, she came back extra crispy, extra black. She cut her hair. That wasn't my experience for real. That wasn't the experience I've had for real. It was just, I think people were intrigued about my experience at Howard, and the things that I was posting about, the places that I was able to travel to, while being a student there. And honestly, my time at Howard was like, it was hard because I was working 2-3 jobs to put myself through college. So I didn't have a lot of I guess the HBCU experience that a lot of people like to brag about, with the house parties or being on the yard and saw Drake, or whatever celebrity was there or whatever. Like, that wasn't really my experience because I was either working in an admin building or I was driving for Uber or I was at Trader Joe's working. Like, I had hella jobs. I was at the African American Museum working. Like, I had to, I was an adult, full-time adult going. I wasn't 17, 18 going. So a lot of my I guess HBCU experience that maybe a lot of other people can share in, I can't necessarily share in because I was older, my experience was different. A lot of the connections I made was on campus, but it was more so in the city. It was in DC. Like I was building connections with people I was at work with or people that I don't know, people who from DC, people who are residents there. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah. So
Over there
coming
beating
back,
your feet out there in Southeast, huh?
you said what?
I said you was over there beating your feet in Southeast somewhere, huh?
It was okay. I actually was in
Yeah.
Southeast DC. Plus,
You
because
was outside.
I was a journalist in training, so we was assigned to different wards, and I specifically was like, I want to be in Southeast DC. I want to be in the hood. So take me to where and so I covered a lot of things there as a student journalist. So yeah, I definitely was in Southeast DC.
Yeah, make sure they put some mumbo sauce on the wings and that rice too.
And it was actually life changing. That sauce, mumbo sauce. What? I had some. It was on U Street. Mumbo sauce wings from where the hell was it from? I can't even think of the name of the spot right now. It's a bar too. Anyways, that shit was good. And I am forever a big fan of mumbo sauce. And go-go on the corner. Hearing the go-go music on the corner. Eating my wings. It was a great time, great time.
Definitely, definitely. So you spent your time at Howard. You got the HBCU experience, but then you graduated, Cam, and I saw that you decided to make a jump after graduation. So what prompted you to go to Africa with no return flight after graduating and not take a job somewhere?
Well, for one, people thought I was African anyway being in DC. I never people thought I was Ghanaian. Like I said, I got Nigerian a lot, but for the most part, I was Ghanaian. People thought I was Ghanaian. And so, and I never been around a lot of Africans for real. Actually, I take that back. I didn't even know my best friend was African until she was Nigerian. I grew up, me and her in middle school, in high school, like that was my homie, Fatima. And I know I was being exposed to a lot of Nigerian culture every time I would go over her house. I never even knew I had jollof rice until I went to DC. I was like, oh, I've had this before. But yeah, so like, I'd never been to the African continent. I take that back. I lied. I had never been to Ghana specifically West Africa. And I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. I think I was probably, truth be told, I was probably scared to go into the workforce for real. I didn't feel like I was prepared. I didn't feel like I really wanted to be in the news anymore. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did what I do best, which is travel without a plan. I'm not a planner. I'm actually horrible at it. And so I remember looking up tickets to Ghana. I was just looking at one ways because I was still a student and I was very broke. And so I found a one-way ticket for like three something to leave from DC to Ghana. And I was like, I think it's like 382. And so I hopped on it immediately. I was broke as shit, like I said. I didn't even have the funds. I had to like borrow some of it. But I got my one-way ticket in January of 2019. I'm like, I am leaving in August of 2019. I remember telling my family in the group chat, I was like, I just bought my one-way ticket. No one was excited as I was, but that's okay. They more had the questions, like, well, where are you going to stay? And you've never been here. And what are you going to do? And all these, the questions that you need to ask. I just didn't ask them and I didn't plan it out. I just know I needed to get my ticket. And so, yeah, that's really why I chose to go to Ghana, because I had never been. People assumed I was Ghanaian. One of my many jobs at Howard, while being at Howard, was at a Ghanaian restaurant. So I was being exposed to, like I said, the food and the culture, the music, all of that, all of those things. And I just dipped. I dipped. I saved as much as I could. It's like $300, $400. That was not the plan. It wasn't the plan, but I had to, get my car from DC to back here in Cali. I had to ship all my stuff. That's where my money was going for real. And I just thought I just had more time and I didn't. And I'm like, I ain't a pussy. I'm not scared. I'm just about to, I know I'm supposed to be there and, God will provide. Who knows how it's going to happen. I just know I got to get my ass on the plane. I got to get there. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. And I always wanted to go to Ghana. So why not? Did I end up getting word that somebody that I went to church with, my family went to church with when we were younger, she ended up moving to Ghana and she had an extra apartment. And so I rented out her extra apartment and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is set. At least I know where I'm about to be living at. So yeah, I left and went to Ghana for 4 months and spent the month in Kenya during that time as well.
Wow. That's lit, Cam. My dog was on some J. Cole $300 in a dream type shit.
I was. I had to go. I had to go. I had to go. And I had the time of my life, man. I wouldn't trade that for the world. I was broke, but I had the time of my life. Like, have you ever had to, like, I never thought I would be broke outside of America, but I was scraping together CDs. That's the name of their currency. Scraping together CDs so I can get some, what's the noodles out there? It's like top ramen. I can't even think of the name of it right now. Dang, I can't think. You don't know what it is? You've been to Africa.
Come on.
West Africa?
I ain't been to West Africa. I've been to East Africa and Egypt.
Oh, okay. Well, then never
Yeah.
mind. But it's like they have like their version of top ramen. Well, I guess it's our version is top ramen. I forgot the name of it, but I was like scraping together CDs so I can, get this meal that I know is about to last me about a day or two. But anyways, yeah.
So the noodles, they come in a pack and you gotta cook them, or
Yeah. Dang, what is it called? It's called, I don't even know. It's some type of ramen and it's in a packet as well, but they make it fancy though. Like you ain't just put it in the packet and then you put the seasoning on and mix it up. No, like they
hmm
chop the onions, they got the hot sauce, they got the meat, like they sprucing it up. It's called they'll put eggs in there. Like dang, what is it called? Why is it not
I
popping
mean,
up? Indomie. There we go. Indomie. Indomie changed my life. And no, it did not last for 2 days. But that was a cheap meal that, I could have for the night and it will hold me over until I find somewhere else to eat. But anyways, yeah. It's called Indomie. You should really have it. It's
I'm adding
good.
it to the list because Ghana's on the list, but your boy, I gotta go when it's outside of December because it is with the folks in colonize, the dirty December in West Africa, and I heard the prices are insane. So your boy not about to drop a couple bands on a flight to get over there and go somewhere and have to pay a couple bands to get in. You feel me?
And honestly, Dirty December is okay. I never really experienced Dirty December because I was broke. I was there in December, but I didn't have the money to do all the partying and stuff. But honestly, yeah, go outside of Dirty December. Like, go really experience, the culture of the people, the residents that stay there. Yeah, Dirty December ain't everything. It's fun to party and be out till 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. But yeah, I wouldn't go for Dirty December either. Especially if it's your first time, I wouldn't go for Dirty December. That's just my.
Yeah,
That's,
I was thinking about because even somebody was like, "Yeah, you should have went to Brazil for Carnival." I'm like, you know what? Much stuff that was going on in Rio, I'm glad that I did not go during Carnival because I think that would have been just overload for me. I was like, nah.
yeah, that's exactly how, like, just even seeing the videos and how many people, and I feel like I just would have been overstimulated. Like, it's too much going on. It would have been fun, but it's a lot going on. I need to go and be by myself by the water. But yeah, I would say go outside of the December, definitely.
Gotcha. So during those, you spent 4 months in Ghana. Like, what were you doing out there for those 4 months while you were out there?
Living my life. What was I doing? I wasn't doing nothing. I mean, okay, I take that back. I was exploring. I was hanging out. I really was just living. Like there wasn't just like what I do here in California. I was just doing everyday life there. I had my community of people. I got to, build my community there. So I was hanging out with my girl Tega and I was doing like film work with her and hanging out with my homie Nana. He's a dope ass tour guide out there. So if you go, book with Nana. Yeah, I was just living life. I was just living life. And honestly, I think I spent a good amount of time worrying about where my money was gonna come from too. But I was traveling up and down the coast. Was like I said, went to Togo and Benin. That was a road trip. I was just living life. Having experiences that I wouldn't necessarily have here in America. Yeah, I had planned to like do a documentary, a little short film doc, and that didn't work out. So, like I said, I was just living life. I didn't really post a lot like I wanted to. I was just enjoying life in Ghana, being a Ghanaian.
And then I heard you got picked up by Roland Martin's film crew while you was out there. So how did that happen?
So as I mentioned with Tega is the homie. She hit me up when I was coming back from Kenya actually, because I spent a month in Kenya, and she was like, hey, you know Roland Martin? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, so Tega works for, I don't like to say she works for Michelle, but I can't think of Michelle's last name right now. But that's like her mama. That's her folks, right? And so she was like, well, Roland's coming out here, and Michelle Hammond, that's her name, her last name. He's well connected. And so Roland was coming to Ghana for the year of return. Tega was like, look, he needs, a social media person. He needs, like, she was just saying all the shit, right? And then she invited me to be a part of the team if I wanted to be a part of it. So I was like, well, hell yeah. Like, I'll be back I'll be back in the country at this time, start, blah, 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 blah. So I'm with the team. He think he has an all Ghanaian team. I didn't say nothing until later on. but I'm like, I'm Ghanaian. Okay. So, we traveling up and down everywhere in Ghana, right? Because he has, he's doing this doc, which is actually out. I think it's on YouTube. But yeah, doing this doc for the year of return. We meet. I met the president at the time. Like, I'm having just these cool ass experiences being with the team, experiencing things that I wouldn't have experienced on my own. Like, we sailed from a boat. This is actually a funny story, but we sailed from one slave dungeon from Cape Coast to Amina, which is another slave dungeon. So I guess I won't go into the story, but I'm just having these experiences. And by the end of it, before the end of it, he ends up finding out that, you American? Oh, you Black American? You went to Howard? Like, so, he's getting to know me, and we chopping it up or whatever. We built this relationship, and I get back home January 2020. I think the world shut down March 13th, I believe it was. I dipped the day before to move back to DC to work for him. So in January 2020, when I got home, I think he hit me up around like the end of February 2020 and was like, "You found a job yet?" And I was like, "Nah." He was like, "Well, come be my associate producer, blah, 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 blah." And I left. And so that's Ghana. Being in Ghana connected me to who I needed to be connected to. And I left with came back home and got a job. Roro. Shout out to Uncle Roro. But that's how the connection started with Ro.
Shout out to Uncle Roro. That's my fraternity brother. So,
Oh, you an
yeah,
uncle?
yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know, like, he's a very proud alpha. He gonna let the world know that he's a man alpha fraternity incorporated. And shout out to the older brothers. But no, that's dope to know. Like, when you go out there and just bet on yourself, and for shit to just start to unfold and start to put itself together, and for you to get a job like right before the damn world shut down, that's a blessing because. Folks
Yeah.
were scrambling around that time. What was it like, what was it like going through the pandemic for you? And after, because somebody who travels so much, right? And then everything just comes to a standstill. You kind of you got to bunker down where you at. What was that like for you?
So it was my second time. I called it like DC round two was what I called it, because round one was college. I was struggling, working 2, 3 jobs, trying to put myself through school. So this was supposed to be DC round two, and I had a job, a nice, good low paying job. But then it was a pandemic, so my experience wasn't going to be like what I thought it was going to be because everything was shut down. And then also during that time, hella protesting. So I worked literally maybe about a 5-7 minute walk from the White House. And people literally would march down 14th. I was on like 14th and K or whatever. And so coming into the city, it was actually quite chaotic. My nervous system was not intact. Everything shut down. There's a whole bunch of protesting. I think that's the year it was it George Floyd in 2020? It was Ahmaud Arbery in 2020. It was all this, the stuff was happening. The stuff was just going on. And me working in politics, and specifically a Black news media outlet, we're touching on the stuff heavy, right? And so the pandemic was, it was a lot. It was a lot for me, not really having an outlet to really like go out and be with friends for real because everything was shut down. A lot of my friends had dipped from DC anyway, so it was kind of lonely at times. I was missing my family because I hadn't been home because I was, traveling in Ghana. So I was only home for like a month or two before dipping again to move back to DC and work for Roland. So during the pandemic, during that time specifically, I worked for him from March to November, and then I came back home. I quit. I was like, I need to go home. That was November 2020. And so just during that time, there were some fun things, I learned a lot, but I was lonely, and it was just time to come back home, everything shut down anyway. So, but it was a cool time. It was cool.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear people's different reactions to like just the pandemic because like the country was in turmoil at the point. And so I remember I was living in North Carolina, but I moved to Miami at that time. And like North Carolina was in phases. So you had like phase 1, 2, and 3. And by the time
Mm.
I'm leaving, we like in phase 1.5, like we just now, allowed to go outside and go get groceries type shit. But I remember getting to Miami, I'm like, damn, they out here partying. I'm
Man,
like, bro,
Texas too. We was reporting on all that. I'm like, y'all partying? Where is the party at in DC? I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't connected. I don't know. But I was scared to go outside anyway. Whatever.
them folks
Y'all
down
was
south,
partying.
like
Like,
they
what?
was outside. I'm like, I'm not going outside until they come out with some type of vaccine. But yeah, Miami ain't stopped. They were still going. So
I bet.
yeah, and then you got this whole wave of like folks just getting sick again, and it was just like a cyclical cycle.
And
So
they had parties. I don't know if they call it COVID parties or whatever the hell to see who can get it first or something like that. That was happening in
yeah,
Texas with some white people. I'm not sure if the black people was in on it, but if y'all was, okay. But that was crazy to me. Like, oh, we just gonna have this
you know
party and see
what?
COVID.
I'm sorry to say this, like we Bow Wow was in on it because remember he got scolded by the mayor because I'm like, bro, why would you throw a party in the club and why would you open up the club up in the middle of a damn pandemic and black people's the ones that's dying from this disease?
Hello, yeah, exactly. And that was Roro what he was saying. We the ones dying,
And he know because he's from Third Ward, he's from Houston. They was
right?
outside of Houston too, so I'm like, y'all, I'm glad we
Yeah.
have gotten past that and moved on, but. And it's crazy too because I remember I was in Tanzania coming back after the pandemic, and I used to watch closely how Tanzania was handling the pandemic. Of course, they had nowhere near the amount of deaths that we had, and a lot of this
I
stuff.
believe the whole continent didn't have. I believe it was the whole. Cause they wasn't reporting like how we was reporting. I remember going to Kenya. They had wash stations everywhere. Okay, they was. I feel like they was more shit cleaner than us, to be honest. But yeah, I think they handled it very well. At least from what I saw.
Yeah, it's definitely like I look at stuff now, and I be like, we should have always had like hand sanitizer stations at every store, anyways. Like, why was the thing that came along because of the pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
Or we should have like hand washing stations, or like even now it's like certain stuff I don't do no more. Like I don't really drink out of public water fountains.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it now after the pandemic, I'll be like, man, like I don't know what's going on. But after we got out of the pandemic, did you end up? When did you start back traveling, and where did you go?
I think I was still broke. I mean, I never stopped me from traveling, to be honest. People be thinking I'm rich, trap like nigga. I am not. Like I don't even be on the budget. I don't know. I just be spending, and when I get home, I'll figure it out. I don't know. Where did I go? The pandemic was over when?
It depends on who you ask on that one.
When did the world open back up? Because I feel like 2020 was a blur. 2020 and 2021 was a blur. I really don't know. Where did I go? Maybe it was Jamaica. Maybe it was Jamaica 2020. I don't know. I will have to look at my pictures. I don't know where the hell I went or if I even left the country for a minute because when I came back home, November 2020, I was in transition again and looking for a job. And I didn't like get into the news industry until I think February of 2021. So I think I was hustling. I was working.
And when did you go to Senegal?
I went to Senegal for my 30th birthday. So that was 3 years ago. That was 2020. So I went November 2023 to Senegal, and I love Senegal. It just makes me so happy when I think about it. I spent 2 weeks there. Went by myself. A homie actually ended up meeting me down there like the second week, and I was there during the time. I think it was during AFCON, I believe, and the Senegal team was playing, and so it was litty. Like when they won, they didn't win the whole thing, but when they did win a game, when they won a match, being outside was lit with them. Senegal was a beautiful time. It was a beautiful time. It was a beautiful time. So I went to
What
Senegal.
was the food hitting on in Senegal?
Man, the fish. I was just telling somebody like the fish was my favorite part. The car is literally like Senegal is on the water, and so the fish was my favorite. The fish was my absolute favorite. And then I can't think of the name of their jollof rice. I can't think of the name, but that was also hitting. The fish and the rice hitting. It's called something with a D, like their the dish that they're known for. I can't think of how to pronounce it. It's something in French. I don't know. The food was lit. The food was lit. Very flavorful. Senegal is the originator of jollof rice. So I'm not even sure how they not in the competition between Nigeria and Ghana. Yeah, the food was. I'm not even a foodie, but I think I'm a foodie when I leave the country, and that was just. It was great. I still have pictures of my phone with the food. So the food was lit. Fish was my favorite. It could be fried, it could be baked. It didn't matter. Just give me the whole fish.
Oh, that's what's up going to Senegal. It's definitely high on the list for me. And, I'm a foodie. I love good food. And Senegal is definitely up there for me. When you go to Senegal, because I heard also too, like and that's crazy. I didn't know they had, started Jollof because I was, Ghanaians and Nigerians, they always at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you over there, look. Who you going with? Who you going with?
I gotta say Ghana. Okay. I gotta say Senegal, right? Because they're the originators. However, I mean, if it was just between Ghana and Nigeria and Liberia is actually in there too. My Liberian people I'm sorry, but Ghana. I like the grain that they use. I like the rice that they use. I like the flavor, okay, of Ghana, the Ghanaians. I like how they do it. So that's who I got for jollof. Sorry, y'all. Plus, I'm kind of biased. I lived there for 4 months, so that's what I was eating. That's what I was eating every day if I could. I'm a carb
Travel
girly.
our fam. Y'all heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Cam said,
Sorry, guys.
"Yeah, don't tell your homegirl either. I know she's Nigerian, so we're not going."
Fatima. And that was the first jollof rice I've ever tasted was
Mm.
Nigerian. So, like I said, I'm a carbs girly. Like, I'll eat rice by itself, whether it's white rice, brown rice, I need some butter. But jollof, I can eat that by itself and be good. So, yeah, Ghana.
I'll feel you on that one. I had some good jollof in Brazil. The Nigerian auntie was out there at the market. I don't know if you got a chance to go out there.
Oh, I had to go back to work. I missed that. I saw you and your post about it though. You and
Fire,
Nikki. I was so jealous.
fire, fire. Like I went back 3 weeks in a row.
I'm shocked that it was so good out there. I'm really shocked.
Yeah, she really from Nigeria though. She
Okay.
she really from Nigeria. Yeah, she
So
she
she
getting all
moved
the ingredients. Yeah, like she moved there and started this restaurant to make a better life for her and her sons.
there?
And
Mm-hmm.
now like she booming. She's able to put her kids through school,
That's
and
what's
every Sunday she at the market out there. Putting in that work. So yeah,
Well, I'm going back to Brazil this year, so I gotta check her out. Definitely gotta check her out.
please do, and let us know. Go ahead and post when you do. And the folks can find you. Actually, when you go down, I need your posters on your page, and just let me know. Give you a true, honest opinion because I think it's pretty much up there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll be the judge of that. So yeah.
So, well, look, Cam, it's been dope having you on the show, and just learning some of the different things. I've learned a lot today. Where can the people find you if they want to connect with you on social?
Adventurous Cam, Adventurous ADVENTUROUS Cam KAM, and that's my name across all socials. So that's Instagram, that's TikTok, that's YouTube. It's all Adventurous Cam KAM. That's how y'all can connect with me. Follow my little journey.
No doubt, no doubt. We appreciate you for hopping on, and also to Travel Hour fam. I think you have a dope journey, Cam, that you've been on. It's been really cool to see the content that's coming out, and I'm learning stuff. I like how you go to different places and just really like dive into the Black history and culture, and you show that to the rest of the world because a lot of times we don't get to see that what it looks like, being Black outside of the U.S. as well.
Appreciate it, fam. Appreciate it. That's really the reason I love traveling is to learn the the Black history of a place. I don't know if y'all Google Black things to do in such and such. That's literally that's why I love to travel because we're everywhere. Black people are everywhere. Now I just gotta know the history. Like how the hell? Okay, what's y'all story? But yeah.
Well, definitely. Well, we appreciate you, Cam. Travel Hour family has been real. We will catch y'all next week with another episode. But until then, always know the world is yours. We out of here.